Welcome to the Insights Unlocked podcast. I'm Nathan Isaacs, Senior Manager for Content Production at User Testing. Joining us today as co-hosts are Jason Giles, User Testing's Vice President of Design, and Leah Hogan, User Testing's Principal for Experience Research Strategy. Welcome, Leah and Jason.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
And our guest today is Don Norman. Don is a distinguished professor emeritus at the University of California, San Diego, where he was the founding director of the Design Lab and founding chair of the Department of Cognitive Science. He is co-founder of the Nielsen Norman Group and a former vice president of Apple. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. His 21 books include Emotional Design, Design of Everyday Things, and Design for a Better World, Meaningful, Sustainable, Humanity-Centered. Welcome to the show, Don.
Thank you.
Awesome. So great. Let's get started. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. So as we all know, anybody who's tuning in, you're among one of the leading thinkers in the space of both user experience as well as human-centered design, right? So you've had lots of experience from electrical engineering to cognitive science. And obviously, you're going strong after having a great and very rich career. And you've said that you want to learn something new every year. And I'm curious, for all of our listeners, what advice you might share on staying curious and also remaining lifetime learners.
I've always thought that my goal in life was to do important things but have fun doing them. And especially now that I've retired for the fifth time, but I'm just as busy as I ever was. But what's important is that I'm my own boss. So all the things I'm doing are things that I really enjoy doing. And I also believe that when you enjoy doing something, you do it well. And if you do something because other people say you want to do it or you think it's whatever, if it isn't the right reason, if you don't really enjoy doing it, you're not going to do it well. So the first thing there is find out what you're good at and try to arrange your life so you can do only those things that you're good at and make it important. Now, when you learn what you're good at and you start doing it, you will soon discover that, you have to do other things that maybe you really dislike. For me, actually, what I disliked was writing. And I realized I accidentally got into a career in academia, and I realized that, to succeed, I better learn how to write. I had really bad writing. When I went to MIT and I graduated with my thesis, my undergraduate advisor says, "You're not going to make it in this world." And I said, no, I'll be an engineer. Other people will do writing for me. But when I got my PhD, on my committee, one of the people went out and bought a book on how to write and gave it to me, saying I was so bad. So I spent the next 3 or 4 years learning how to write. And I learned how to write in my own voice so that I enjoy the writing because I'm talking. I enjoy the first draft. I really hate the second and third and fourth and 30th draft, but those are necessary. So that's what I recommend to people. First of all, find out what you like and don't like. Try to avoid things you don't like. Unless they're really essential, then learn to like it. Because once you become good at it, hey, it's kind of neat. And the other thing is be curious. I'm always curious. It annoys people around me because we're walking down the street having a nice conversation and I stop and say, "Oh, look at that." Disrupting the conversation. But that's really important because I want to know what people do. What new things are happening around the vicinity, or what is strange, or what is not strange. And so I'm always learning. And that's the only way to keep up with the world, because we get an education and we quit when we graduate and get a diploma and think, aha, I'm finished learning. No, you've just started.
Did you find that you were just a naturally curious person your whole life, or is that something that you had to develop?
No, I think I've been naturally curious always. But I claim you can develop it. I try to train my students. In fact, The Design of Everyday Things is often used as an introductory book because it skims a lot of the topics. And one of the things it does teach is how to observe. But the other thing I have to tell students, because they always love to go out and come back and tell us all the things that are wrong with the way things are designed. And I say, nope, you're not allowed to just tell us what is wrong unless you could also say how you could make it better. It's amazingly difficult many times. You see what's wrong, but, gee, I don't know what else I could do.
Speaking of writing, in your new book, Design for a Better World, you advocate for humanity-centered design. For our listeners, can you tell us a little bit what that means to you?
Well, for the last, 20, 30 years, I've been advocating human-centered design. I used to call it user-centered or people-centered, but it's all the same, just that one word. And it's wrong. Now, why is it wrong? Well, none of the principles are wrong. I still believe firmly in how I teach it and what it's talking about. What's wrong is what it does not talk about. It does not talk about how, if you're building a physical product, how you destroy the environment when you mine to get the materials that are required, when you destroy the environment when you smelt them, and then when you manufacture them. And you destroy the environment when you make it so it's so beautiful and small and tiny and beautiful materials that are combined together so you can't take it apart when its lifetime is over. And it's designed to have a lifetime of only 2 or 3 years. And so it's all thrown away into big piles of junk, which is destroying the world. And so, in addition, we're also destroying cultures by the way we do things. So the standard way of doing design, look, it's really, its goal, the traditional design, is to help companies make more money, to sell products that are good. Now, I'm not against that. I think that's very important and it's very useful, but it isn't going to save the world. And we have to really rethink how we design things in order to help the world. And we also maybe ought to change some of the emphases so that we're not just designing products or services for large corporations, but we're going out to societies and doing work of societal benefit. New sewer systems, new public health systems, new educational systems. And, well, that's hard because if you do that out in communities where there's not many resources, it's hard to get things together. And second, we should not go in and look at it and say, oh, I see your problems and here's your solution. No, that's colonialism. We have to go into communities. They know what their problems are. We don't have to tell them. They even know, they're even starting to approach them. But they often have limited resources and knowledge, and so they're really attacking the symptoms, not the underlying cause, because underlying causes are difficult. That requires working with governments, so it requires politics. So I believe designers here are wonderful to work with people because design is the only profession that is both a profession of making and doing, but with a focus upon the people, the benefits to people. Because other professions do the same kinds of projects, but they always focus on productivity, on cost, on keeping the schedule. They don't worry about what it does to people's lives, and we do. So that's what the book is about.
One thing that I wanted to ask more about, just to follow on to what you just spoke about, is there's this, you have to train designers, and you also have to train designers to partner with people and to train people to be designers. So it's a little bit of a meta activity. And I'm curious, as someone who's spent a lot of your career training designers, what do you recommend to those of us who are thinking through how do we evolve design education to both produce better designers and also designers who are going to help lead the way for people who may not be designers by trade, but by activity?
First of all, I had an insight about a year ago when I was at a conference and someone asked me, fact, the speaker saw me in the audience, and I was frowning. So he said, "Come on, Don, what's your problem?" And anyway, what have you ever designed? And I said, "I design designers." What's really important, I think, is training people. And I'm proud of the fact that through my books and my talks, and of course the students that I've taught in my classes, these people are making a real difference. So I'm an educator. That's what kind of a designer I am. Now, the issue is this. Design right now is in the middle level of the world. It's rare to find designers at the corporate level who are helping make the decision about what the company to do. In other words, for large companies, it's rare to find chief design officers. There are some, but not that many. And even in the university, the design is it's usually lumped with art and design, and it's never the most important school in the university. And it ought to be, because we are capable of working with any problem. Our methods are what we have. We actually don't have any real depth of content except in the methods that we use. And I consider that a virtue, because people who really understand their topic well, they don't know how to get away from the framework they have, so they can't think differently, because this is how we've always done it. And in my mind, when a designer hears somebody say, "This is how we've always done it," aha, now that's an opportunity. Why is it you always do it that way? Oh, well, gee, I mean, I don't know. Well, you have to, first of all, take advantage of what designers can do. If you look at my books, I'm proud of the fact that this last book, Design of a Better World, has nothing new in it. That is, it isn't just some crazy person spouting theories about what's wrong with the world and what are possible solutions. No, many people have said the very same thing. Very distinguished people have said the same thing. Very, very distinguished people have produced the kinds of solutions that I am recommending. The real issue is, how come nobody does them? How come they haven't been adopted? And so what I present is not new ideas of that sort, of describing the problems or describing the solutions, but a new framework in which to embed it and to view it in a different way. And so I put it together in a unique way with my own voice. And that's what I'm trying to teach my students to do too. I think designers, first of all, should be the leader, but second of all, you can't lead if all you are proud of is your craft skills. That doesn't help. In fact, if I'm trying to preach for the circular economy of manufacturing, and suppose you discover your company isn't doing this, or your company is, with their digital products, are deliberately addicting their users and preventing them from doing anything else. You can't go to your management and say, "This is wrong." You can't tell your management what they're doing that's wrong. It's not that they don't want to hear. They need to know what they're doing, but what they really want to know is, what are the answers? So you have to go to them and say, "Here's what I recommend we do instead." But now you're in business. And so you can't just say that. You have to show how this is actually economical and may even help the business. And you have to speak the language of the people we're designing for. Well, we're designing for our management. The language of management is spreadsheets. So we have to speak the language of finance, because that's very important in a company, or else the company doesn't survive. So designers have to learn more about the world. They have to learn how business works. They have to learn how the world works. They have to learn politics. They have to learn history to understand why people are doing things the way they're doing. They have to learn about the humanities.
Don, just switching gears a little bit, The Design of Everyday Things. That was one of the foundational books that I stumbled on as I started my journey. A consistent theme across all your books, and really a cornerstone of design in general, is around this word simplicity. And yet throughout my career, and I'm sure everyone, with all of our listeners, simplicity can be a really hard thing, not just for designers, but for organizations to achieve. I'm just curious, what have you found? Are there some pragmatic approaches that you've considered as part of the design process to actually achieve this elusive feeling of simplicity?
Well, I even wrote a book about that called Living with Complexity, in which I say, look, complexity is in the world. Simplicity is in the head. A lot of people think simplicity is in a product. I look at the product, it looks clean and elegant and with not very many controls and so on. Nathan, are you sitting in front of a recording machine with 18 different sliders and buttons and switches and meters? Yeah, because you need them. And if you made that really simple, so all you saw was sort of a blank panel and you had to, go into a menu or do some complex things to get to where you wanted to go, it wouldn't work. Simplicity is one of the simplest things to use is the sort of the way things that waiters now use, where they have a big menu in front of them that basically it has 50 buttons, each one with a specific type of food and choice and so on. And then another place, the issue where the person says, well, I want to modify that. Because if it's easy to use and if you understand it, it's simple. I always give my example of the kitchen. I can go into my kitchen and cook. I love to cook, and my wife and I have designed our kitchen and put the things where we need them. If somebody else comes to our kitchen to cook something, they can't use it. It's a mess. Why is it so complicated? Why you have some knives here and some over there, and you have this here, and I can't find that. Well, same way, if I went to their kitchen, I would also not be able to use it because each of us organizes it according to the way that we work and the things that we need. And for us, it's simple. In fact, if we have trouble finding something, which happens occasionally, we say, why are we keeping it there? Why don't we move it to there? Make it simpler to use. And simplicity is in the head. So in design, what we have to do is design it so that the operation is as much intuitive as possible, as much upfront as possible, as easy to learn as possible. Because once you've learned how it works and the function and how the structure, it's easy. So the key to simplicity is understanding. And the key to good understanding is good design.
I love that. Kind of related, you recently said that the hard part of design is making it easy to use when something goes wrong.
Oh, yeah.
How do you recommend designers and developers approach the creation of systems that they're just not intuitive when they're working as expected, but also supportive and clear when things don't quite go as planned?
Yeah, and it's worse because with our complex systems that are intertwined, we're never sure where the actual cause is. So, for example, when we started this session, my sound wasn't very good. And what do you mean my sound isn't good? I spent a lot of money to get a good microphone and a good boom to place it properly. And so I was told, well, go look at here's the Riverside platform, take a look at the microphone. But I knew better. I knew that my microphone doesn't feed into the system because it feeds into an intermediary system. So I then had to search the intermediary system to see what microphone it thought it was using. And I had trouble because I had trouble finding the place it tells me. But when I found it, it was not using the correct microphone. But many times you don't even know. I supervised a PhD thesis that was done by someone at KAIST, the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, which was just about this. She noticed that people would install a printer and they couldn't get it to work. Well, because it was a remote printer, so it had to go onto the network. And then you had to connect your computer to the network and then to that printer. And when things didn't work, you didn't even know where to look. Now that turns out to be a major unsolved problem. No one has yet solved that problem very well. And but what designers can do, first of all, is think of the things that can go wrong. Think of all the parts that are involved, and especially the parts that you aren't responsible for, because that's where it's especially difficult. Second, now we try to work to try to make that better. And one of the real problems is standards, that every company does things in a different way. And that's one of the things that makes it so difficult. And many companies don't think of making their products easy to debug, that to comment, to make it easy to say what network they're on or whether even they're connected to the network properly. And so that in order for us to debug it, we have to know how the interconnections are being made and if they're working, and yet nobody seems to produce things that make that easy to trace. So that's a hard job, but personally, most of the important things in life are difficult.
Yeah, well, I feel like this is an opportune time to ask the question that everybody is asking themselves right now, which is, what about AI and its influence in what's coming next? And so I'm curious about what your thoughts are about AI, and looking 5 to 10 years out, what might we see happening in the design space?
Well, first of all, the current systems in AI are very powerful. They're powerful because they use an immense amount of resources. So one of the people who helped develop the modern deep learning was actually a postdoctoral student of mine, Jeff Hinton. And he worked in my lab and helped develop the very first neural networks that with multiple layers. He and my colleague David Rumelhart worked on that. I met him recently at Google. And, Jeff, I said, what was that theoretical breakthrough that allowed this great change? And he said, well, basically, there wasn't any. The difference is that today's computers are about 1 million times more powerful than the ones we were using in those early days. 1 million times? If I tell you that in 10 years they'll be 1 million times more powerful than today, what does that mean to you? Probably nothing, because it's hard to conceptualize what on earth that might mean. And the notion that you can have a computer that can basically read everything that's ever been published and look at every drawing and artwork that's ever been done and use that to create a database of knowledge and answer from it. Well, come on, that's inconceivable that we could even do that. But we do it today. But the amount of electricity that it takes to do the training of one of these systems is the same amount that a town uses in an entire year. It's a huge cost. So, first of all, it's scary. Second of all, it's powerful and wonderful. Third of all, it has no intelligence. So in the AI world, don't forget the A. It's artificial. It doesn't understand what it's doing. It's a pattern matching device. It finds patterns and then recites them. And it does a good job. It does a wonderful job, and it finds interesting things. And as we all know, it also finds wrong things. Because it can't put it together. It doesn't understand what it's about. It doesn't have any ethics because it has no understanding. And the people who developed it didn't seem to have any ethics either. That's a different story. So, but first of all, I think it's very powerful and it's very important, and it is going to change the world, and it will change jobs. Well, actually today I found in the journal NOEMA, N-O-E-M-A, a wonderful article by David Autor called AI Could Actually Help Rebuild the Middle Class. And so this was a really great article. David Autor is at MIT, and I've been a fan of his for a long time. He's written a lot about technology and how technology and modern business and modern life actually interact. And this one was a very positive article, saying that, why is it that we pay somebody who sweeps up the rooms almost no money at all, and somebody who, organizes forms and responds in a business, we spend a medium amount of money, and someone who does nothing but sit in their office and make decisions and tell other people what to do, a huge amount of money. And in part, it has to do with not how hard you're working, but it has to do with how long it took you to reach the point where you could do that job, what kind of education you needed. In most cases, formal education, but in also a lot of experience. And he says that may go away, that because these problems have the expertise and the knowledge, your job is to use it and in a sensible way and to apply it and to be intelligent about how you do that. And that doesn't require a college degree. And he's using AI in a very positive way here. Now, there's lots of negative things, but lots of people write about the negatives. It's good to hear somebody write about the positives. The other book is,
A Hacker's Mind?
and it's wonderful. I'm a fan of Bruce. He's very well known in the security business and writes lots of books about how to get better security in your computer systems and so on. But this book is different. He says hacking isn't just computer people breaking into other systems. Hacking is any time you are in a society and you figure out how you can manipulate the tax code to make yourself more money, but legally, to find loopholes. And the subtitle of the book is How the Powerful Bend Society's Rules and How to Bend Them Back. But why I'm talking about this is he thinks that AI can actually be a help to society, because AI can go in and tell us where the loopholes are. It can try to hack the system for you, and it can do this much more quickly than people can do it. He believes in the red team approach to designing things, which is you design a system and you take people and their job is to attack and see where they can break through and do novel things. He thinks AI will be even better than most people at doing that, breaking into systems, and therefore suggesting ways of curing them. And moreover, one of the problems is even after you find the hack, it's hard to often find the fix, or it just takes time. But AI is getting pretty good at writing computer programs. And so it can read the code and maybe even determine where the possible problems are, and you could fix the code. So there are all sorts of reasons why to take a positive view of what's happening. Now, he also points out that AI could be used by the bad guys to create the loops, the loopholes, and the hacks. So, but that's the way of all technologies. I mean, truly, all technology is used for good, but can easily be used for bad. But I'm optimistic because throughout our history, our technology has always had negative impact at first, because it did change the way we did jobs. It did change how we worked. And people lost their jobs because the old technology basically made us stronger and faster. And then a little bit smarter, like calculators and advanced calculations. So I'm optimistic. I think, though, we are going to have better ethics, and there are, as you know, people trying hard to work on that. And one of the things that Bruce Schneier makes is that we need understandable AI, things that can explain why they made a decision. And the problem is, people don't know why they make decisions. You ask people often why they did something, and they'll make up a reason, but they're making it up because they often have no idea. And so the neural networks are kind of like people. It's all the subconscious part of people. So we have to add the conscious part of people back to the neural networks. And that's where good old-fashioned AI comes in. It might be able to do the conscious part.
Don, you have been so gracious with your time. I've got one last question, but I'm really curious. You recently announced this Don Norman Design Award. And so I was wondering if you could tell us about it and how people might learn more about it.
Let me give you the backstory. Is that why did I write the book, The Design for a Better World? Because I stepped down from my last job, which was to set up the design lab at University of California, San Diego. So 7 years after I was appointed for a 5-year term, I said, no, I'm going to retire. So I stepped down. And today I'm 88 years old. And Then I was, what, 86, 85. And I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And I thought about the mess the world is in, and I thought about what I'm good at doing. And I said, well, all my books have been really good, but they tell you how to build things that are easier to use and understand. That's good. I'm not ashamed of it, but it's not going to change the world. So what can I do to change the world? And I said, well, let me look at the problems. And I decided I couldn't help because the problems are well known and well understood, and people have written a lot about and talked about them. I couldn't add anything. Well, let me look at the solutions. And same thing. Lots of good people have produced the solutions. They're mostly technological. Yet these problems are often human behavior. And so that I decided was what I would approach. And I would try to understand how we could make things better and aim lots of our work to improve society, to cause a better life. Why shouldn't we, instead of causing more money, instead of the target is more money, and even for countries, that gross domestic product should be higher and higher and higher, even though gross domestic product is made up of negatives and positives. If I spend money to pollute the world, good, you spent money. And but now if the country has to spend money to erase the pollution, good, you spent money. So, polluting things counts for you twice. Anyway, that's the book. But then I wondered, how can I get more people who work in this area? Well, a bunch of my friends have long been asking me, please, they want to set up an award program in my honor. I didn't know, I resisted it. And finally I said, okay. And they wanted me to give some big award to some famous person who had done a lot of good things. And I said, no. If you're famous and you've done a lot of good things, you don't need another award. It's not going to change anything you do. And, I have friends who have those awards. Me too. I mean, when you get the award, it's nice. But you come home with this trophy and you don't have any room to put it. And it doesn't change what you do. So what could I do that would change what people did? Well, the first thing is I thought of, which is what we ended up with, is when you are young and you're just starting out, that's when you need the reward. And so that's what we decided we would do. We would reward people who are actually going out and doing things in society that have great benefit. And they won't really have made much of a dent yet because they probably don't have much funding and they're not much experience, but I want them to have enough evidence that we would say, yeah, you have great promise. So that's what I'm trying to do. And moreover, I said, I don't care how old you are. You could be young, you could be very old, if you have just started to work in this area. So this is the first time you're starting to do these kinds of projects. Second, I don't care how you're educated. You may have no education. You may have a dozen PhDs. I don't care. I want to only look at what you've actually done to see whether that's actually helping people's lives. And again, with evidence. And finally, well, what about the people who are training them? Yeah, we should reward the institutions that are actually training people to go out and do this kind of work. Some of them will be the traditional universities and colleges, but others will be non-traditional. There'll be boot camps, and there'll be little internet groups, and this, that, and the other.
And where would we tell our listeners to find out more about this?
We have a very simple website. The name of this project is called the Don Norman Design Award, DNDA. And so the website is dnda.design.
Well, we're excited. Don, thank you so much for being on the show. This has really been it's been an honor for me, and just listening to all the thoughts that you have to share, it's just been amazing.
Well, thank you. Actually, you've done a good job, all three of you, in making this. It was fun for me too.